What is up, guys? Zan from the Zan Madden YouTube channel. Today's video, we are going to improve your defense overnight with the top 4 defenses that you can run in Madden 24. And the best part about this is that they are all in the same defensive playbook, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Explain it again with those nuggies.
This defense is essentially a custom defensive playbook. It has everything you need to get more stops in this game. It has counters for nearly every single offensive approach that you guys will face online, and you guys can hop amongst all of these defenses that I'm going to break down. So let's start off with number 4, which is going to be the nickel 3-3 nickel blitz 0. Now this defense is an A gap loop meta. In fact, it was probably the first defense to really exploit the left A gap, which I think is going to be a trend you will find in this video. With this particular defense, you're going to want to turn your auto flip off, and you guys will probably also want to set your zone drops to 30 and 5. That is very meta. We'll talk about this again in another portion of this video. But with this particular breakdown, we're going to run this with the nickel corner to the right side of the screen. So you want to make sure that he's all the way on the right, and we are going to shift our linebackers when we break the huddle over to the left. This is going to essentially create kind of a pseudo 3-4, where most players are going to then pinch the defensive line, and then they are going to drop these players into zone. Most players are not going to stay in a cover 0, although if you get the vibe that your opponent can't handle man coverage, cover 0, no need to adjust out of this. However, what most players will tend to do is basically set up a variety of different coverage shells. You might see something kind of like this here, which is essentially a cover 2. A lot of players really like this particular style of defense. You could use a hook curl instead of a mid read for that left linebacker. Now with this particular defense, this is designed to be an A gap pressure. Now, the thing about it though is that this is probably one of the more meta blitzes that you guys will face online, although this will get you stops against average Madden players just via shed, because a lot of players panic when they see something like this. And this is going to look a little bit similar in our next breakdown as well. But the way that you're going to want to do this is kind of just user in the right A gap and just hope that you get this A gap looper to come in. And if you don't, bare minimum, it's a 4-man rush. It's going to shed really quickly. There's several ways to block this meta. Offensive alignment in general can block this. You can have no attached tight end at all, which is kind of the basis of my offense. A lot of times though, when you get into formations that do have a tight end, whether it be off the line of scrimmage or attached with his hand in the dirt, you will start to notice that this does kind of change the way that the defense behaves. So you know, you may actually get inconsistent results against this. Again, this is kind of why it's number 4 in my list. I find that in general, in order to make this work better, you kind of have to start adding blitzers into the equation, because this will help kind of free up the A gap pressure that comes in. You see right here, we get clean A gap by adding that extra rusher off the left side. So this is a very customizable defense. I think one of the appeals of it is that it does show cover 0, which most players will set up man beaters. But you guys also have the ability to kind of set up Mabel coverage with this as well. When you set up your Mabel coverage, keep in mind you want to back up those outside corners on the outside, and this will help you with floods to the sideline, corner routes, things of that nature, while still keeping your zones over the top. Again, the premise of this is kind of that it really doesn't necessarily come in that consistently, but it does shed really well. Like you see right here, we're able to get to the passer quite easily. One of the focal points of this defense should be that you have a good pass rusher over the center. This guy is going to be one-on-one with the center quite often, and you'll notice that you'll be able to win these animations. And this is great because you don't get double teams on those interior defensive tackles. Interior rushers in this year's game are quite good. You just need to be able to isolate them correctly to get those one-on-ones. And you see right here, this is kind of the purpose of that A gap loop. You rather get a double team over on one of the defensive ends and you get 3 one-on-ones with those other players. This is a pretty good blitz. And of course, it's very customizable. And of course, you can also get the A gap pressure. Again, you're going to have better luck when you're sending 5 rather than hoping for the loop to come in through the middle. Number 3 in our countdown is going to be the 4-3 even 6-1. This is a defense that is extremely meta. It's in my number 3 because I personally think it has a little bit to be desired from a coverage standpoint, but what it does extremely well is shed and get to the passer quite well with the pinball blitz or the pinball disengage approach. So let's go ahead and kind of break down how pro players would run this. What they would typically do is make sure that they have lurk artist players at all 3 linebacker positions. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have that on my field. And then they traditionally will put lurk artist players at the defensive end positions. This is going to help with being able to drop those guys in coverage so they can still animate when you don't want to rush 4. Maybe you want to rush 3 or even user a guy off the defensive line. We'll talk about that momentarily. Over the top in this defense, you definitely want to have deep out KOs. So I'm going to have that here. And then on the outside, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have, at least pick artist or lurk artist abilities. I actually have another deep out KO, so I'll put Tariq Woolen out there and I'll leave Randy Moss with his lurk artist here. Now, the base defense for this is going to be cover 4 quarters for most players, but I would strongly encourage you guys, if you want to run this defense, to actually hop out of the Kansas City Chiefs defensive playbook and hop into the New England Patriots defensive playbook, because the New England Patriots have 2-man under and Tampa 2, which is the only defense that has 4-3 even 6-1 with those plays. You notice that we only have basically these 6 plays, with it being a cover 0 blitz, cover 4 quarters, cover 1 hole, cover 3, a cover 3 blitz, and a cover 1 linebacker blitz. So a little bit limited in most playbooks. If you guys want to run this defense as a base defense, head over to New England. Now let's go ahead and get into the way that most players set this up. This is basically going to be a defense where you are going to kind of pinch your line and crash it to the inside. You'll see that all those guys kind of stack their blitz angles into the A gaps on both sides. You see that both D tackles and both defensive ends are rushing into the same spot. And this is what causes those disengages, okay? So the thing with this defense is that most players will kind of play this very similar to that Mabel that I just broke down, where they're going to have purples set to 5 and flats set to blue. But you will sometimes notice that players will, play the straight up quarters and then have the KOs, or sometimes they'll play a hybrid coverage like this. It is highly customizable, but it is a little bit limited in that you don't have the ability to put your safeties in outside thirds. So what most players will tend to do is kind of sit in the cover 4 with sideline outside deep KOs if they're not running meta. Now, the important thing with this as well is to blitz your user. This changes the block targeting, and ideally you want to kind of stand over the center, because again, with all those players rushing into the A gaps, you want to get those disengages. And you saw right there, we actually got nano detected, but there is a fair amount of time when you run this defense where if this guy is kind of slightly bumped and doesn't come through absolutely clean, he'll disengage rather than nano detect, and this little frozen animation that occurs, he just comes straight through and gets that sack. So this is something that will happen a fair amount. This is, again, kind of maybe for me a deterrent as to why I don't run this defense, because it is inconsistent. I preach consistency in terms of, my pass rush again, but the very next down you may end up kind of standing slightly behind that D tackle, and then you get those pinball approaches. Again, we got another nano detect right there. You run this over and over and over, you're going to notice that the guys basically just kind of randomly pinball through the middle. Some players will actually go and stand clear to the other side, so they'll kind of like do this to kind of make this work, and sometimes that causes B gap pressure. You see right there that we actually had Carmichael come through, but he was picked up late. That's kind of what I'm getting at here with this. Now, of course, the other thing that's really good about this defense as well is that you can play the cover 4, you can still have your purples, and then you can click onto either of your lurk artist linebackers. So it could be Carmichael or Suggs, and then peel back in coverage and still be able to get 3-man rushes that will shed right away. You see Jalen Carter coming through the middle right there. He has the blitz X factor, so don't worry about that. He's not getting improved performance from that glowing X underneath his feet, but you see right there that it does come in quite easily. So that is why the 4-3 even 6-1 is my number 3 defense you guys can run to improve overnight in Madden 24. Now, before we get into number 2, if you guys could do me a favor, make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Zan Madden YouTube channel. I'm uploading tips 5 times a week. You guys can take a look at all the content that I've broken down here in Madden 24. And if that's not enough for you guys should head over to my strategy website, gridirongameplans.gg. If you like this content, you will be sure to love my Kansas City Chiefs defensive game plan that is on the website, which is going to focus specifically on our number 1 defense in this list. But we have so much other content in that game plan and in the game plan section in general, with 9 offensive and defensive game plans, all included for the low price of $9.95. You guys will also unlock the Vault, which is a location of constantly updated tips focused on the meta, or the most effective tactics available. You guys constantly hear me say that in all of my videos. The meta is what the pros are running. We explain how the meta works, and most importantly, how to counter that. And if that's not enough for you guys, head over to our Discord channel, where we have lab sessions every single Wednesday, taking your questions to help you guys improve, whether it's a question about stuff on the website or something that's maybe not on the website. Again, you guys can unlock the entire website for $9.95 a month. On to our number 2 defense, and that is the $3-2. You knew it was going to check in here in this countdown. At some point, it is the most used defense online. Many would say it's the best defense online. I'm going to explain why I have a case for a different defense being number 1, but let's talk about about the Dollar in terms of what it provides. Now, you guys know Dollar has always been pretty well respected for its ability to blitz as a, pass defense. You could drop into coverage, play a lot of coverage-based defenses, especially in this year's game where people will rush 3. There's so much you could do in this. So let's kind of obviously talk about DB Fire. DB Fire is kind of that blitz that a lot of players are kind of fearful of. Essentially with this, you're going to notice that most players tend to pinch and contain, and then they'll blitz this extra linebacker through this gap and kind of hang out here. This creates a little bit of an issue. You're going to get a gap. You're going to get the slot corners coming in free off the edge. It's quite good, but it's not quite as good as the A gap meta that exists. Now, this is going to be very similar to our number 4 defense out of the nickel 3-3, but most pro players run this because the coverage possibilities out of Dollar are better. I actually don't personally believe this A gap to be as impactful as most players tell you it is, but it does exist. So let's kind of talk about the main defense most players are going to run this out of, and those are going to be out of the cover 2 sink linebacker blitz, the play known as spinner, and then the new meta out of Dollar is out of the free safety zone blitz. Now, all of these defenses have their own strengths and weaknesses. One of the things I would say about the cover 2 blitz that is really good is that if you guys want to activate the safeties package, you guys can change your safeties assignments over the top for the purpose of just kind of playing cover 3 cloud, or what a lot of us know as the inverted cover 3, if you will. And the thing about this blitz is that, again, with it, I don't find it to be really that crazy consistent of an A gap. A lot of players will tell you it's the best blitz in the game. I don't personally believe that, but what you guys can do with this is still be able to roll your coverage. So one of the things that I think a lot of players don't do enough of is utilizing these these cover 3 safety adjustments where you can change the direction that your coverage flows. Imagine being able to roll my coverage from the right side of the field to the left side of the field, but then the next down we come out and we do a completely different coverage rotation where we have something that looks basically like this, where now all of a sudden we're rolling the coverage left to right. This is the strength of having those adjustments. You have the ability to drop, these players with this package into mid read, so you can kind of lurk the sidelines, or you can man players up. It's a highly customizable defense. But again, I personally find this defense to be pretty reliant on blitzing an extra player just simply to get the A gaps to come in. I think without that, you're kind of in a spot where that A gap is a little inconsistent. You see right there, it does come in if you rush basically 5. Once you get into the practice of only sending 4, I find that it becomes a far less effective defense. But again, Dollar is still a very good coverage defense, which is kind of the saving grace, is you could play coverage, still send this and get sheds. So let's kind of focus on what that is here. We'll talk about that new meta that most players are running, which is again out of the play that is known as the free safety zone blitz. With this defense, you're going to most likely want to put your deep out KOs on your sideline zones because you are going to be playing a cover 3 based defense. So what I'm going to do here is I'll have Randy Moss with his deep KO. I'll have Mike Evans with his deep KO. And then your right safety that is on the field, he also needs to be a deep KO for this. So I'm going to go ahead and put that particular player up here, Bo Jackson. And then from there, it's kind of up to you what you want to do. Now, with this particular defense, it is something that a lot of players will customize a fair amount. But again, it's going to look a little bit like that nickel 3-3 blitz that we started off. The first thing with this is that there is a direct tell. The safety walks down on the left side. You're going to want to press this defense right away, so that way that player does not do that. A lot of players will just kind of play this as a cover 3 based defense with the sideline KOs everywhere. And what a lot of players will do is they'll kind of just come down here and try to stand here. And some players blitz their user, some players don't. I mean, the consistency of this blitz, I personally think, is very inconsistent, but it does still allow for sheds rather quickly. There's a large contingent of pro players that believe that with this blitz, that if you were to basically back up your right slot corner, that improves the efficiency of this blitz. Again, I'm just not so sure how much I'm a believer in that. You see that it does kind of make the guard kind of wig out and drop back, but in general, the block targeting stock against this in this game, I personally don't feel to be that great. Where this defense does improve, obviously, is that it is a pretty solid 4-man shed defense. So you do get off the blocks quite effectively. You also have the ability with Dollar as well to kind of drop everyone in coverage and then just make sure you're blitzing your user and then standing with the green bar over over their heads. That way everybody is able to shed. You'll see that Jalen Carter is able to work off that block. You know, we're not getting into a spot where they're punishing us for rushing 3. What a lot of players will do in dollar is they will basically press and pinch, and then they will crash the defensive line inside. So everyone's kind of piling into that A gap, similar to the way the 4-3 even 6-1 works. And then they blitz their user, and then you see guys just kind of pinball and get off the blocks like this. And that could collapse the pocket, only rushing 3. What you do have to be careful with, though, however, in this defense is that basically when you pinch and crash inside, that makes escaping with the quarterback pretty easy. And a lot of players are using that fridge parry item in MUT. So you're going to end up with the pocket kind of being something that collapses, but it doesn't keep good contain on the quarterback. However, the fear is also that you always have that element of the slot blitz. So if I wanted to bring Peppers off the edge here, now all of a sudden that 5-man pressure is going to make that A gap come in. Now you see the A gap is much, much better. I think there's so many players out there solely relying on the 4-man rendition of this blitz, and it's just so meta at this point, and EA's tried to patch it so many times that the offensive line just seems to target it better and better, especially as the ratings go up in Ultimate Team. Honestly, the 4-man loop is probably a little bit better in regs. Again, I know there's a lot of players out there that swear if you just back up these corners or whatever, it helps, but I'm not personally a believer in this defense as anything more than a shed defense. I don't find it when you rush 4 to just come clean. Obviously, go ahead and run this as a Mabel coverage. So again, that 35 profile, you've got the ability to kind of set up double Mabel, have a couple hooks in the middle of the field, which is great. You know, you can play 2 hooks and then still pinch and crash your line inside, kind of turn this into a little bit of a shed defense with Mabel, and, you know, again, just kind of lurk the field. Again, not the best defense in the world, but very customizable. You can do a lot blitz heavy, you could do a lot of coverage. It's pretty good. It's just, to me, everybody runs it, so it makes it a little bit easier when you're facing players online. Everyone labs against dollars, so that makes it a little bit tougher to run, but it is still very good, hence why it checks in at number 2. Now for my number 1 defense in Madden 24 that you guys can use to improve overnight. This is going to be the big nickel over G. What I love about the big nickel over G is that it is a defense that brings the most consistent A gap in the game. I don't want to hear anything about 3-3 or dollar. I'm sure, you know, the pro players are out there that run it, you know, they adjust well behind it. That's why it's good. It sheds, it does fine. If you guys are looking for the best A gap in the game, to me, the big nickel over G contains it, and it has the most possibilities from a coverage standpoint. Now, first things first, you do get the 3 safety rule stock with this defense. If you guys do not like those adjustments, turn on the slot CB package. I think most of you are going to leave this as a default package. This is one of the best shedding defenses in the game, and it also, like I said, has that A gap blitz. So let's kind of show you guys just a very simple defense that will immediately change how you play overnight. With this defense, what we're going to do is we are going to put our deep out KO safety into an outside third. We're going to put this safety, again, another knockout player, preferably into a middle third, and you're going to put this safety into an outside third. This is a cover 3 rotation. Then, of course, with this, you guys can play zone drops on or off, totally up to you. But with this particular defense, what I love so much about it is that you pay attention to which player the D tackle is. If that D tackle is in the A gap, he's going to get double teamed, leaving the other D tackle one-on-one, and he is almost always going to get an instant win. Right here, this is Jalen Carter against Larry Allen. Larry Allen's got quite a bit of weight on him, but you should still see that you're going to be getting sheds quite easily. Right here, we got a bunch of one-on-ones on the interior, and you'll take that all day long with the fridge and Jalen Carter getting off their blocks right away. Most players hate facing over G because there is so much we can do from a coverage standpoint. You can play kind of a cover 3 defense that still leaves 4 zones underneath, but yeah, those outside corners playing the shorter sideline area while they have help over the top. It's basically what Tampa 2 should be in real life, but in Madden form, okay? But like I said, you also have the ability to run the A gap blitz meta. This A gap is still one of the best in the game. Basically with this, you're always going to get that guy clean through the middle. It's very, very fast. You guys can kind of set this up quite easily. If you guys need the best coverage setups to go behind this blitz, that's where I would strongly urge you to go over to Gridiron and watch my full game plan, because I have custom coverage shells for bunch strong, for trips tight end, for tight formations, for offenses that audible from bunch to 4 strong or from bunch to trips with a running back on the trip side. We've got different coverages, whether it's match or zone drops or hybrid coverages where it's a little bit of zone and a little bit of man to neutralize what the pro players do online. But what I really love about this is that we can kind of just show this A-gap blitz, but not really actually send it. In fact, what I would actually recommend doing is probably putting, you know, this linebacker over here into a 3-rec. You could go ahead and do whatever you want with the other linebacker. Just blitz your user and rush 3, and then you have this nice little zone coverage that you can kind of play while you're getting the sheds on the interior. This is a perfect shed defense, and you guys have so much more you guys can do with this. You got Mabel, you can run match. It's got every single match play. We have a match game playing on the website, quarters. It's got cover 6, it's got palms, cover 6 ember, cover 9, cover 6 trap. But then you've got so many other different things you could do out of this. This is just the cusp of what it does. But to me, it's the best A-gap blitz in the game. It's also the best shed from a base rush standpoint in the game. I think it's superior to basically every defense, but maybe 6-1 in the shed category. But that's really what 6-1 is a shed defense. This is a better coverage defense. So I think in terms of coverage, OverG is way better than 4-3, even 6-1, but from a shed standpoint, it's only slightly worse, but it does have the best A-gap to make up for it. So that is why it checks in as #1 on the best defenses you can run in Madden 24. I hope that this video helps you guys out. Basically gave you guys kind of some meta looks at a bunch of different defenses, but I know there's a lot of you out there that are maybe new to Madden. Maybe you found this video because you're trying to get stops in Madden and don't know where to start. This is just the kind of the tip of the iceberg. I've got so much more on the in-depths of why these defenses work over on Gridiron. So if you guys want more, you're fiending for more, go check that out. Make sure you guys hop in our Discord as well. We got a great community that'll help you guys out at the game. But I hope you guys like this video. I'm out of here. Until next time, this is Zan. Get in the lab and good luck.